I wasn't even trying to snoop. That's the part one keep replaying in my head, like if I say it enough times, it'll somehow make what happened feel less intentional. It started with something stupid. A charger. Adam and I had been roommates for almost a year at that point. Same apartment, same routines, same unspoken boundaries. He was the kind of guy who kept things controlled. Not cold, just private. You know those people who can laugh with you, hang out, even open up a little, but there's always something behind their eyes they don't let you touch? That was Adam. And me? I noticed everything. So yeah, that night I knocked on his door. No answer. I figured he was out. His shoes were gone, his jacket too. I just needed a charger, and he always had extras lying around. He wouldn't care, right? That's what I told myself as I pushed his door open. First, nothing seemed off. His room was cleaner than mine as usual. Bed made, desk organized. That faint scent of his cologne still hanging in the air. I walked over to his desk, opened the top drawer. And that's when I saw it. It wasn't hidden well. Just tucked under a notebook like he'd been in a hurry. A second phone. Not old, not broken. Clean. Charged. I remember just staring at it for a second, my brain trying to catch up. Adam barely used his actual phone around me. Always face down, always silent. And now this? I shouldn't have touched it. I know that. But something about it, it didn't feel random. Felt intentional. Like a piece of a puzzle I didn't even realize I'd been trying to solve. So yeah, I picked it up. The screen lit up immediately. No password. That alone should have been a red flag. There were only a few apps. Messages. Notes. Photos. My thumb hovered for a second, then tapped messages. And just like that, everything shifted. The texts weren't long. Mostly short, direct, almost careful. No names saved. Just numbers. But the tone. God. It wasn't the Adam I knew. It was sharper. More confident. Sometimes even vulnerable in a way I had never seen from him. And then I saw something that made my stomach drop. A message from earlier that day. You don't get it. I can't risk him finding out. I froze. Him. There was no one else living with Adam. My chest tightened as I kept scrolling, even though part of me was already screaming to stop. Another message. It's not that simple. He looks at me like I'm just normal. I didn't realize I was holding my breath until my lungs started burning. Because suddenly, this didn't feel like curiosity anymore. It felt personal. Too personal. I backed out of the messages, my hands slightly shaking now, and opened the photos. I don't know what I expected, but it wasn't me. Not directly. Nothing obvious. Just pictures, random moments around the apartment. The couch, the kitchen, the balcony, and then a blurry shot of me, sitting on the couch, head tilted back, eyes closed. Probably asleep. I stared at it longer than I should have. There was nothing inappropriate about it. Nothing creepy even. But the way it was taken, the angle, the timing, it didn't feel accidental. It felt like I wasn't supposed to know it existed. And that's when the realization hit me. This wasn't just a second phone. This was a version of Adam I had never met. And somehow, I was part of it. I quickly locked the screen, my pulse hammering in my ears. This was too much. Way too much. I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't have seen any of this. I placed the phone back exactly where I found it, slid the notebook over it, and stepped away like the whole desk might explode if I got any closer. I grabbed the charger I originally came for, barely even checking if it worked. Then I left his room, closed the door, and just stood there in the hallway, trying to breathe, trying to convince myself I didn't just cross a line I couldn't uncross. But the worst part? It wasn't guilt. Not really. It was something else. Something heavier. Because now I knew there was a secret. And it had something to do with me. I didn't sleep that night. Every sound in the apartment made my chest tighten. Every passing car. Every creak of the floor. Every flicker of light under his door. I kept thinking about those messages. I can't risk him finding out. My mind kept circling back to that one line. Because now I had, and I had no idea what to do with it. It was sometime past midnight when I finally heard the front door open. My whole body went still. Keys dropped into the bowl. Shoes kicked off. That familiar quiet way Adam moved when he thought no one was paying attention. I stayed in my room. Lights off. Door slightly open. I don't even know why. Maybe part of me wanted to see him. Or maybe I was just waiting for something. His footsteps paused outside my door. Just for a second. Then kept going. His door opened. Closed. Silence. I exhaled slowly, only then realizing how tense I'd been. This should have been the end of it. Just a weird discovery. Something to forget. But deep down I already knew. There was no way this was over. Because secrets like that, they don't stay hidden. Not when someone else is already holding the key. And I had a feeling Adam knew something had changed. Even if I hadn't said a word yet. I knew he'd confront me before I even saw his face the next morning. Not because he said anything. Because Adam wasn't the type to not notice. I woke up after maybe 2 hours of sleep. My head heavy. My thoughts still tangled in everything I'd seen. For a second, I almost convinced myself it had been a dream. Then I heard movement in the kitchen. And yeah, reality hit fast. I stayed in bed longer than I should have, staring at the ceiling, replaying every second from last night. The phone, the messages, that photo, that line. I can't risk him finding out. Too late for that. I dragged myself out eventually, trying to act normal. Like nothing had shifted. Like I wasn't suddenly hyper-aware of every little thing about him. When I stepped into the kitchen, Adam was already there. Leaning against the counter, coffee in hand, phone in the other. He looked up the second I walked in. And I swear something in his expression tightened. Not obvious. Anyone else probably wouldn't notice. But I did. "Morning," I said, forcing my voice to sound casual. "Morning." Same tone. Same calm delivery. But there was something underneath it now. Something sharp. I moved toward the cabinet, grabbing a mug just to have something to do with my hands. I could feel his eyes on me. Not constantly, but enough. Like he was waiting. Or checking. "You sleep okay?" he asked. Simple question. Too simple. "Yeah." I lied. "You?" "Fine." A pause. Too long. I poured coffee even though I didn't really want it. My hand was steady, but inside, not even close. This felt like standing on a thin layer of ice, both of us pretending it wasn't cracking. I turned slightly, leaning back against the counter across from him. And for a second, just a second, we made eye contact. And there it was. That look. The one I didn't have a name for before. But now I did. Because I had context. And it made everything worse. "You went into my room." It wasn't a question. My stomach dropped. Straight to the point. No hesitation. That was Adam. I exhaled slowly, setting my mug down. There was no point denying it. Not with him. "Yeah," I admitted. Silence. He didn't move. Didn't react immediately. Just watched me. And somehow that was worse. "Why?" he asked. Still calm. Still controlled. But I could hear it now, the tension beneath it. "I needed a charger," I said. "I knocked. You weren't there." Another pause. His jaw tightened slightly. "You could have texted." "I know." I didn't add anything else. Because we both knew that wasn't the real issue. The air shifted. Heavy. Thick. He set his coffee down slowly, like he was buying himself time. Then, "Did you see it?" There it was. No pretending. No dancing around it. My chest tightened. I could lie. Say no. Walk away from this. But something about the way he was looking at me, it didn't feel like he wanted a lie. Felt like he was bracing for the truth. "Yeah," I said quietly. That one word changed everything. I saw it. The moment it hit him, his shoulders tensed. His gaze dropped for half a second before snapping back to mine. And for the first time since I'd known him, Adam looked exposed. Not weak. Not broken. Just real. Raw in a way I had never seen before. "What exactly did you see?" he asked. Careful again. Measured. Like every word mattered. "Enough," I said. Another silence. Longer this time. His fingers flexed slightly against the counter. Like he didn't know what to do with them. I hesitated for a second. Then, there were messages. His expression flickered. Barely. But I caught it. And he pressed. I swallowed. My heart was pounding now. You were talking about someone. I didn't say me. Not yet. His eyes held mine, searching, trying to read how much I knew, how much damage was done. And the photos, I added. That did it. That's where something cracked. His composure slipped, not completely, but enough. A breath left him, slow and controlled, like he was trying to steady himself. You weren't supposed to see that, he said. Not angry, not accusing, just honest. And that somehow made it worse. I know. Another pause. Then I said it. The thing that had been sitting in my chest all night. You were talking about me, weren't you? There. No taking that back. The room went completely still. Adam didn't answer right away. Didn't look away either. Just stood there, staring at me like the world had narrowed down to this exact moment. And for the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. Not of me, but of what came next. His voice when he finally spoke. Lower, quieter. Yeah. One word. But it hit harder than anything else. Because now it was real. Not just something I imagined. Not just something I read. It was him, standing right in front of me, admitting it. And suddenly everything between us, every look, every pause, every moment that felt slightly off, it all made sense. I let out a shaky breath, running a hand through my hair. Why didn't you just tell me? Came out softer than I expected. Not accusing, just confused. Adam let out a quiet laugh. But there was nothing funny about it. Because, he said, his eyes finally dropping for a second, it's not exactly an easy conversation to start. I frowned slightly. Try me. That got his attention. His gaze snapped back to mine. And this time, there was something different in it. Something deeper. More intense. You really want to know? He asked. And the way he said it, it didn't feel like a simple question anymore. Felt like a line. And I had just stepped over it. I should have said no. That's the thing. That was the moment where I still had control. Where I could have shrugged it off, laughed it away, pretended none of this mattered. But instead, I held his gaze and said, yeah. And just like that, whatever line was between us, gone. Adam studied me for a second, like he was trying to figure out if I actually understood what I was asking for. Because this wasn't about curiosity anymore. This was about him, finally dropping whatever he'd been hiding all this time. You're not gonna like it, he said quietly. I let out a breath, shaking my head. You don't get to decide that for me. That landed. I saw it in the way his jaw tightened again. Not defensive, just cornered. By me. By the situation. By the truth he couldn't avoid anymore. He looked away first this time. Ran a hand through his hair, exhaling slowly. Then, I didn't plan it, he said. His voice was different now. Less controlled. More real. It just happened. I stayed quiet. Let him talk. Because I had a feeling if I interrupted even once he might shut down again. At first it was nothing, he continued. Just noticing things. His eyes flicked back to mine. The way you talk. The way you move around like you don't realize anyone's watching. My stomach tightened. Because now I knew. He was watching. All those little things that shouldn't matter, he said, his voice dropping slightly. But they did. I shifted slightly against the counter, suddenly too aware of myself, of how I was standing, of where my hands were, of him. I tried to ignore it, he went on. Told myself it was just a phase or something, that it would pass. A bitter smile pulled at the corner of his mouth. It didn't. Silence stretched between us again. But this time it wasn't awkward. It was heavy, full, like every word he said was settling somewhere deep in my chest. So instead, he added, I kept it separate. My mind immediately flashed to the second phone. That's why you have it, I said. He nodded once. Yeah. Another pause. Then I asked the question that had been sitting there since the beginning. The messages? Who were you talking to? His expression shifted again. less guarded, more resigned. No one important, he said. Just somewhere to put it, so it didn't spill into real life. I frowned slightly. You mean me? He didn't answer right away, but he didn't need to. The silence said enough. My chest felt tight again. Not uncomfortable, just intense. You took photos, I said, quieter now. His gaze darkened slightly. Yeah. Why? That one hit harder. I saw it in the way he hesitated. Not because he didn't have an answer, but because he did. And saying it out loud would make this even more real. Because I couldn't say anything, he admitted. His voice dropped. And I needed something. Something about that. About the way he said it. It wasn't creepy. It wasn't wrong. It was just honest. Too honest. I wasn't doing anything weird, he added quickly, like he suddenly needed me to understand that. It wasn't like that. I didn't think it was, I said, and I meant it, because somehow I didn't feel violated. If anything, I felt like I had just stepped into something I wasn't prepared for, something bigger than I expected. We stood there for a second, just looking at each other. No masks anymore, no pretending, just this. So what now? I asked. And yeah, that question wasn't as simple as it sounded. Because this wasn't just about his secret anymore. It was about us. Adam let out a slow breath. His eyes didn't leave mine this time. That depends, he said. On what? On whether this changes anything. There it was. The real question. Not the phone. Not the messages. Not the photos. I swallowed. Because I didn't have an easy answer. I should have felt uncomfortable. I should have wanted distance. I should have said, nothing changes. But I didn't. Because the truth was, something had changed. The second I read those messages. The second I saw myself through his eyes. The second he said yeah. I don't know, I admitted. Honest. Just like him. Adam nodded slowly. Like he expected that. Like he was ready for it. Okay. But he didn't move. Didn't step away. Didn't break the moment. And neither did I. Because even though I didn't have an answer, my body, it wasn't confused at all. There was this tension. Not awkward. Not uncomfortable. Just charged. Like something was building. And both of us felt it. You should have told me, I said again, softer this time. Not accusing. Just real. Adam tilted his head slightly. His gaze dropping for a second, then lifting back up. And you would have been okay with it? That question. It hit deeper than I expected. Because now, standing here, after everything, I wasn't sure anymore. I don't know, I said again. And this time, my voice was quieter. More honest. Because that was the truth. And he could see it. I knew he could. Something shifted in his expression. Not relief. Not exactly. But something close to it. A step forward. Not physical. But real. Yeah, he murmured. That's what I thought. Silence settled again. But it felt different now. Closer. Tighter. Like the space between us wasn't as safe as it used to be. And then, he moved. Just a small step. Barely anything. But enough to close the distance between us. My breath caught slightly. Not because I was scared. But because now, there was no pretending this was just a conversation anymore. You can tell me to stop, Adam said quietly. And his voice, it wasn't confident anymore. It wasn't controlled. It was uncertain. Like he was putting everything on the line in that one moment. I should have said something. Should have stepped back. Should have created space. But I didn't. I just stood there, looking at him, waiting. And that was all the answer he needed. That should have been the moment everything either stopped or crossed a line. And yeah, crossed. Not in some dramatic, out-of-control way. It was quieter than that. Slower. More dangerous. Adam didn't rush it. That's what got me. He didn't suddenly grab me or say something bold like he had it all figured out. No, he stayed right there, close enough that I could feel his presence, but not touching. Waiting. Like he was giving me one last chance to step back. I didn't. And the second he realized that, his hand moved. just slightly, brushing against my wrist. It was barely anything, but it hit harder than it should have. My breath caught, my body reacting before my brain could even catch up. It wasn't just the contact, it was everything behind it. All the tension, all the things left unsaid, suddenly narrowing into that one small point. "You're not pulling away," he said quietly. I swallowed. "No." My voice came out lower than I expected, more certain, and that changed something in his expression. Not confidence exactly, but permission. His fingers shifted slightly, wrapping just enough around my wrist to feel intentional now. Not tight, not forcing, just there, real. "You don't look surprised," he added. I let out a small breath, almost a quiet laugh. I think I already went through that part. That got the smallest reaction from him, a flicker of something softer. But it didn't last, because the tension came right back. Stronger this time. His eyes dropped briefly to my lips, then back up again. And yeah, I noticed. Of course I did. My chest tightened. Not in panic. In anticipation. Which was new. Confusing. But not unwelcome. "You can still stop this," he said again. But his voice didn't sound like he believed that anymore. And honestly, neither did I, because if I wanted to stop, I would have already done it. Instead, I took a slow breath and said, "Do you want me to?" That landed harder than anything else. I saw it. The shift. The way his control slipped just a little more. Because now it wasn't just him risking something. It was both of us. Adam stepped closer. This time, there was no space left between us. My back was lightly against the counter, his body just in front of mine, not touching fully, but close enough that I could feel the heat from him. "You have no idea how long I've been trying not to do this," he said. His voice was low, not shaky, but not steady either. And something about that honesty, it made my pulse spike. "You could have walked away," I said. "I tried. A beat. Didn't work." I exhaled slowly. Yeah. I was starting to get that. His hand shifted from my wrist slow, deliberate, like he was giving me time to react. I didn't flinch, didn't move. So his fingers slid up slightly, resting against my arm. Warmer now, more solid, more real. My heart was pounding, loud enough that I was sure he could hear it. "You're thinking too much," he murmured. And he wasn't wrong. My brain was still trying to catch up. But my body, it had already made a decision. "Then stop me," I said. I don't even know where that came from. But the second the words left my mouth, I felt it. The shift. The moment everything tipped. Because Adam didn't hesitate anymore. His hand moved to my jaw, firm but careful, guiding my face just slightly toward his. Not forcing, just leading. Giving me the chance to pull away. I didn't. And then, he kissed me. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't messy. It was controlled. Intentional. Like he had imagined it 100 times before actually doing it. And that thought alone hit harder than the kiss itself. For a second, I froze. Not because I didn't want it, but because it felt real. Too real. All those looks. All that tension. All those messages I wasn't supposed to see. It was all right here now, between us. And then, kissed him back. That was it. That was the point of no return. His grip tightened slightly, not aggressive, just certain now. Like he didn't have to hold back anymore. The kiss deepened, slow but heavier. Like all that restraint finally had somewhere to go. And yeah, it wasn't just him anymore. I felt it too. That pull. That heat. That thing that had been building without me even realizing it. When we finally pulled back, it wasn't far. Just enough to breathe. But we didn't separate. Didn't create space. Foreheads almost touching. Breaths uneven. "This changes everything," I said quietly. Adam let out a soft breath. Yeah. No denial. No pretending. Just truth. And somehow, that made it even harder to step away. Because now, this wasn't just his secret anymore. It was ours. We didn't move right away. That was the strange part. After everything, the tension, the confession, the kiss, you'd expect something louder. Messier. But instead, we just stood there, still close, still caught in that same charged space. Like neither of us trusted what would happen if we stepped back. Adam's hand was still near my jaw, not holding me anymore. Just there. Like he hadn't decided whether to let go or not. "You okay?" he asked quietly. I let out a breath, nodding once. "Yeah, I think so." That was the most honest answer I had. Because this didn't feel wrong. Confusing? Definitely. Unexpected? Completely. But not wrong. And I think he saw that. His shoulders relaxed just a little, not fully, but enough to show he'd been holding tension this whole time. "Say something," he murmured. I let out a small, almost nervous laugh. "About what?" "About this." He gestured slightly between us, like even now he wasn't sure how to define it. I leaned back just enough to actually look at him properly. And yeah, that was a mistake. Because now that I knew, now that I'd seen everything behind his eyes, it was impossible to ignore. "You've been holding that in for a while, huh?" I said. His jaw tightened slightly, but he nodded. "Yeah." "How long?" A pause. Then, "Long enough that I stopped trying to count." That hit harder than I expected. Because this wasn't just something recent. This wasn't a random moment. This had been building, quietly, carefully, right next to me. And I never saw it. "Why me?" I asked before I could stop myself. That question just slipped out. Not insecure, just real. Adam didn't answer immediately, but when he did, his voice was softer. "I don't know," he admitted. "It just was you." Simple. No overthinking. No big explanation. And somehow that made it feel more real than anything else he'd said. I exhaled slowly, nodding a little. "Okay." Another pause settled between us. But this time it wasn't heavy. It was shifting, like we were both adjusting to something new. Something neither of us planned, but neither of us was walking away from either. "So what does this mean?" I asked. Adam looked at me carefully, like he was choosing his words. "It means I don't want to pretend anymore," he said. That was it. No labels. No pressure. Just honesty. And weirdly, that was enough. I leaned back against the counter again, crossing my arms slightly, not defensive, just grounding myself. "Yeah, I don't think pretending is an option anymore." He gave a small nod. "Yeah." Silence again. But it wasn't uncomfortable. Felt like we were both just thinking, processing, letting everything settle into place. Then, "You saw everything?" he asked. I glanced at him. "Not everything." A small pause. "Enough." He exhaled slowly, rubbing the back of his neck. "Great." I smirked slightly. "What? You embarrassed now?" He looked at me, one eyebrow lifting. "A little." That caught me off guard. Because Adam, embarrassed? That was new. And honestly, kind of humanizing. I shrugged lightly. "Could be worse." "Oh yeah," he said. I nodded. "You could have told me first." That made him laugh. Actually laugh. Not forced. Not quiet. Real. "Yeah," he said, shaking his head slightly. "Probably should have done that. Would have saved you a whole secret phone situation." "Don't remind me." We both fell into a small, easy silence after that. And for the first time since this started, felt normal again. Not like before. Different, but not tense. Not fragile. Just real. Then Adam looked at me again. More serious this time. "So, are you okay with this?" There it was. The question that actually mattered. Not about him. About me. I held his gaze. Thought about everything. The messages. The photos. The way he looked at me. The way I felt when he kissed me back. And yeah, that answer came easier than I expected. "I didn't stop you." Simple. But it said everything. Something shifted in his expression again. Softer this time. Relief, maybe. Or something close to it. "Good," he said quietly. And for a second, we just stood there again. Same space. Same distance. But everything between us? Completely different now. And I had a feeling. This was only the beginning. The weird thing wasn't the kiss. It was what came after. Because once the moment passed, once the tension stopped pulling so tight it didn't disappear. It just changed shape. Adam stepped back first this time. Not far. Just enough to break the intensity. And suddenly, the kitchen felt like a normal place again. Same counter. Same mugs. Same quiet morning light coming through the window. Except nothing about it felt normal anymore. I rubbed the back of my neck, exhaling slowly. So, I started then stopped. Yeah. Didn't really know how to follow that. Adam leaned against the counter again, crossing his arms but not in that closed-off way he used to. Felt more like he was grounding himself. Yeah, he said quietly. Another pause. But this one wasn't heavy. It was just uncertain. Like both of us were trying to figure out what version of reality we were in now. I've been thinking, I said. He glanced at me. That's usually dangerous. I huffed out a quiet laugh. Shut up. That got the smallest smile out of him. And somehow that helped. I mean it, I continued. This whole time, you were dealing with this alone. He shrugged slightly. I handled it. Did you? I asked. That made him pause. Really pause. Because yeah, having a secret phone, hiding messages, taking photos he couldn't admit existed, that didn't exactly scream handling it well. His jaw tightened a little. No, he admitted after a second. That honesty again. It was starting to feel like a pattern with him now. And I didn't hate it. So why now? I asked. Why didn't you just keep it buried? He looked at me for a long moment. Then, because you found it. Simple, direct, and true. I nodded slowly. Fair. Another quiet second passed. Then he added, softer this time. And because I was getting tired of pretending you didn't matter like that. That one hit different. I looked at him properly again. Really looked. And yeah, there it was. Not hidden anymore. Not buried. Just there. You're making this hard to ignore, I said. A corner of his mouth lifted slightly. Was kind of the point. I rolled my eyes, but I couldn't stop the faint smile. Yeah. Well, mission accomplished. Silence settled again, but this time it felt easier. Like we were finding a rhythm in this new version of things. Still unsure. Still undefined. But not fragile. So what are we supposed to do now? I asked. Adam exhaled slowly, glancing down for a second before looking back up. We don't rush it. That surprised me. I expected something more decisive. But this felt careful, deliberate. And what does that mean? I asked. It means, he said, we don't pretend this didn't happen, but we also don't force it into something it's not yet. I considered that, and honestly, it made sense. Because whatever this was, it wasn't simple. It wasn't just a moment. And it definitely wasn't something either of us fully understood yet. Okay, I said finally. He nodded once. Okay. And just like that, we had some kind of agreement. Not official. Not labeled. But real. I pushed myself off the counter, grabbing my mug again just to do something. As I passed him, our shoulders brushed. Light, brief. But this time, neither of us moved away. And that small, quiet moment said more than anything else. Because whatever this was, it wasn't over. Not even close. For the rest of the day, we acted normal. At least on the surface. We both had things to do, classes, calls, random errands, and somehow we slipped back into our usual routine like nothing had happened. But it wasn't the same. Not even close. Because now, every little thing felt different. When he walked past me in the hallway, I noticed it. When our hands almost brushed reaching for the same thing, I noticed it. When he looked at me, really looked, I noticed it. And the worst part? I didn't want to ignore it anymore. That night, I was sitting on the couch, laptop open but completely useless because I hadn't read the same paragraph in like 10 minutes. My brain kept replaying everything. The confession, the kiss, the way he said, we don't rush it. I was still stuck on that. Because part of me agreed. And part of me didn't. I heard his door open behind me. Footsteps. Then the fridge. Same quiet rhythm as always. But now I was hyper aware of it. Of him. "You're not actually working, are you?" Adam said. I glanced up. He was leaning against the kitchen counter again. Same as this morning. But his posture was looser now. Less guarded. "No," I admitted. "I've been staring at the same thing for like 10 minutes. He smirked slightly. "Productive." "Shut up." That small back and forth felt familiar. Grounding. Like we weren't completely lost in whatever this was becoming. He grabbed a bottle of water, then hesitated for a second, before walking over and sitting on the other end of the couch. Not too close. Not far either. Deliberate. Careful. Just like earlier. "You're thinking again," he said. I let out a breath. "Yeah." "About what?" I glanced at him. He wasn't pushing. Just asking. And for once, I didn't feel like avoiding it. "You?" I said. That got his attention. "Good or bad?" he asked. I shrugged slightly. "Complicated." He huffed out a quiet laugh. "Yeah. That tracks." Silence settled between us. But it didn't feel awkward. Felt honest. "I keep replaying it," I admitted. "Everything you said." Adam leaned back slightly, watching me. And I'm trying to figure out if I missed it," I said. "Like signs. Something obvious." He shook his head. "You didn't." "You're sure?" "Yeah," he said. I made sure of that. That made my chest tighten a little. Not in a bad way. Just realizing how much effort that must have taken. "To hide it?" I asked. "To protect it," he corrected. That one landed. Because that's what it was. Not just hiding. Protecting something he didn't know what to do with. I leaned back into the couch, exhaling slowly. "That's kind of insane, you know?" He glanced at me. "Yeah." Another pause. Then, "I don't want it to be like that anymore." I turned my head slightly, looking at him. "Like what?" "Hidden," he said simply. There it was again. That honesty. That quiet intensity he didn't bother covering up anymore. "And what does that look like?" I asked. He held my gaze for a second. Long enough that my pulse picked up slightly. "Like this," he said. Then, he moved. Not fast. Not sudden. Just shifting closer. Closing the space between us. Not touching yet. Just near. My breath slowed slightly. Not because I was trying to calm down, but because something about this felt inevitable. "You're not stopping me," he added. I swallowed. "No." And that was it. No big moment. No dramatic buildup. Just a quiet understanding. His hand brushed against mine on the couch. This time, I didn't even think about it. I just turned my hand slightly and let our fingers rest together. Simple. But it meant everything. Adam exhaled softly beside me, and I could feel it. That shift again. Not tension this time. Something steadier. Something real. "We're really doing this, huh?" I murmured. He didn't hesitate. "Yeah." And for once, that didn't feel uncertain anymore. Felt right. And the craziest part? It all started with a secret. One I was never supposed to find. And now, it was the only reason we were here at all. The next few days felt unreal. Not in a dramatic way. Just in that quiet, subtle shift where everything looks the same but nothing actually is. Adam and I didn't suddenly become something official. We didn't sit down and define anything. But we stopped pretending. And that alone changed everything. It showed up in small ways first. Like how he'd sit closer without thinking about it. Or how conversations didn't feel filtered anymore, like he wasn't holding parts of himself back. And me? I stopped second-guessing every reaction. Stopped acting like I needed to figure it out before feeling anything. Because the truth was, I already felt it. I just hadn't named it yet. One night, a few days later, we ended up on the balcony. It wasn't planned. It just happened. I was already out there, leaning on the railing, phone in hand but not really using it. The city was quiet, lights scattered across the buildings, that late-night calm settling in. Then the door slid open behind me. I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. "You always come out here when you're thinking," Adam said. I smirked slightly. "You've been observing me that long, huh?" A pause. "Yeah." I glanced over my shoulder. He was standing in the doorway for a second before stepping out, closing it behind him. No hesitation anymore. No distance. He moved to stand next to me, close enough that our arms brushed lightly against each other. And neither of us moved away. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. I exhaled slowly. "Us. Honest. Simple." He nodded slightly like he expected that. "Good or bad?" he asked. "Still complicated," I said. That got a quiet huff from him. "Consistent, at least." I smiled faintly. Then I looked at him. Really looked. And yet, there was no going back to how things were before. Not after everything. Not after knowing. "Do you regret it?" I asked. He didn't even hesitate. "No." That answer came too fast to be anything but real. I nodded slowly. "Yeah, me neither." Silence settled again. But this time, felt peaceful. Not tense. Not uncertain. Just steady. Adam leaned slightly against the railing, his shoulder brushing mine again. "You know," he said, "I thought this would go a lot worse." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh yeah? How?" He glanced at me. "I thought you'd find out and leave." That hit deeper than I expected. Because that fear, it made everything he did before make sense. The hiding, the distance, the control. "I almost wish you told me sooner," I said. He looked at me surprised. "Seriously?" "Yeah," I shrugged. "Would have saved us both a lot of overthinking." He laughed quietly. "Yeah, probably." Another pause. Then, "I was scared," he admitted. And there it was again. That honesty. That version of him I never got to see before. "Of me?" I asked. "Of losing you," he said. Simple, but heavy. I swallowed slightly, looking back out at the city. "You didn't," I said. A beat. "You didn't lose me." I felt him shift slightly beside me. Closer. Not asking. Not testing. Just there. And this time, I leaned into it. Just a little. Enough to make it clear. He noticed. Of course he did. And I felt it. That quiet shift in the air. Not tension. Something steadier. Something that didn't feel like it was going to disappear the second we looked away. "So what are we now?" I asked quietly. Not because I needed a label, but because I wanted to hear what he'd say. Adam was quiet for a second. Then, "Something real," he said. No hesitation. No overthinking. Just that. And yet, that was enough. I never meant to find his secret. Wasn't looking for anything. Wasn't expecting my life to shift because of a random charger and a second phone. But I did. And he didn't run from it. He faced it. Told me the truth. Let me see the version of him no one else did. And somehow, that changed everything. Because in the end, it wasn't about the secret. It was about what he chose to do after I found it. And the fact that he didn't hide anymore, that he stood there and told me everything. That's what made me stay. That's what made this real.